Everyone, welcome to the first and last council meeting of this triennium. For the year. Oh, you didn't let me finish. I knew there would be in there. So we'll open with our karakia. Kia mā. Just a reminder, when you're speaking to put your microphones on, we are being screened. We've got no apologies. And this morning we've got public forum. We have got Rachel Allen on Zoom who is coming in. And you are there, Rachel. You've got 5 minutes. Nice to see you.
Great, thank you. Tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you for giving me the time to speak today, and congratulations to all of you, both returning councillors and those elected for the first time. For those that don't know me, my name is Rachel Allen and I'm a resident of Tawa. I'll be upfront. I haven't read every meeting paper. They had to be opened one by one with no option to download or search them as a single document. So please forgive me if I cover something that may be buried in those papers. Those of you who know me will not be surprised by what I'm here to talk about, Spicer Landfill and its governance. Until the previous council term ended, there was a wastewater treatment plant and landfill joint committee, made up of councillors from both Porirua City Council and Wellington City Council. Its purpose was to provide governance for the joint services under the wastewater and landfill joint venture. Yes, the wastewater treatment plant will soon shift to the new water entity, but Spicer Landfill remains, and so do its ongoing impacts on Wellington City residents. For that reason, it is essential that a clear governance structure is retained or established, one that includes Wellington City Councillor representation. The joint deed between Porirua City Council and Tawa Borough, dated 1983, specifies control and management of the joint work shall be undertaken by the joint committee. In 1991, it was resolved that the joint management agreement concerning the Spicer Valley landfill continue in the name of Porirua City Council and Wellington City Council. I understand that there is also possibly an updated deed from 2008, but neither council are clear on whether that has been ratified. Spicer Landfill cannot simply be absorbed into an existing Porirua City Council committee. That would make it impractical for Wellington City Council councillors to participate, as they'd be required to sit through some lengthy unrelated agenda items. Spicer needs its own committee. I'm also concerned that by already confirming remuneration for committee chairs, the door may have been unintentionally closed on creating a joint committee. Right now, there is no public transparency about what is happening with Spicer's governance, and that is deeply concerning. So today, I'm asking you to be very clear about your intentions. What are your plans for Spicer Landfill's governance, and how will you ensure that Wellington City Council's voice is properly included? Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Questions for Rachel? Jeff or Councillor Hayward?
Kia ora, Worship. Kia ora, Rachel. It's good to see you again.
Hello. Nice to see you.
When I last spoke to you as a representative of that said committee, I said that although you would be stepping down from the committee, please do not be a stranger. I'm so glad you're not. I have one part-tie, and it is in your statement, you were wanting clarity around the role of Wellington City Council. What is your understanding of the position from Wellington City Council as in your engagement with them about this?
Okay, I want clarity around whether there's going to be a joint committee, firstly. I think there has to be one that includes Wellington City Council. Wellington City Council, the only response I've had from them is that they're waiting to hear from Porirua City Council.
Okay, no more questions. Thank you, Rachel.
Anyone else? No. Thank you, Rachel.
Bye.
Let's see you. Okay, Jill Day. Would you like to come up, Jill? Or do you come up this way, Jill? Up here. Sorry. Otherwise, you're sitting in everyone and they won't be able to see you. And just turn your microphone on. You've got 5 minutes.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Ngā mihi mai o ha ki ngā iwi mana whenua Ngāti Tō Rangatira o tēnei rohi. And congratulations to the Mayor and councillors for your election, re-election or election to Porirua City Council. I know you'll be excited about the 3 years ahead, and I know it's a huge effort, and it has been a big effort for this council getting to the point of having your first council meeting, so great to be able to be here with you. So I'm here to speak to the same issue that Rachel's just spoken to, so that's item 11.2, the governance management arrangements. So I'm here on behalf of the Tawa Community Board. I'm the chair of the Community Board. And I just want to start by saying the Community Board really values the working relationship that we have with Porirua City Council. And so as you're aware, as Rachel has said, the Spicer landfill has and continues to be a significant issue for our community. And in recent years, it used to be mainly that it was around the area in the northern part of Tawa on that side of the hill, but we've now got to the point where it's spreading right across Tawa at times. So we are hearing a lot about it from residents. We've really appreciated the responsiveness and support of the last council, and particularly the members of the Joint Committee, and you've worked really well with our representatives, so thank you. We do have concerns and notice that there is no proposal to establish a joint committee, and as Rachel's outlined, that is what is meant to happen. We know that it's been complicated by the emergence of the new water entity Tiaki, and we understand that that makes it slightly harder for having a committee that used to cover two issues. And we suspect that the proposal or the thinking has been to have it covered within the main committee. I can understand why that would be put forward as a recommendation, but we think it doesn't really work that well for the participation of people from the Wellington City Council end. Rachel's outlined that makes it hard for someone to know when to turn up to a meeting because agendas are quite hard often to know how long discussions will take. But also the fact that we know that over the next couple of years there's going to be a lot that needs to be considered with the landfill, and it will need some good consistent regular oversight. So often when you have something in a main committee, you don't get as many papers because you're covering many things within that committee, and we believe that it needs some regular oversight from both Porirua and Wellington perspectives. And I just want to acknowledge that the joint governance arrangement has been consistently adhered to for over 3 decades now, and it would be really good to be able to keep doing that, and especially because we are actually coming to the crunch point where some fairly difficult decisions do need to be made, and we would like to be able to work alongside you with that. And we do have councillors. We've got a new councillor elected to Tawa, Councillor Andrea Compton, who would be keen to be involved in that committee, and we also have community board members who would be really keen to continue being involved, and we want to acknowledge and thank Rachel Allen for her work. We acknowledge that she came onto the community board because of this specific issue, and so we really do want to make sure that we continue to have a voice in that process. Kia ora, happy to take questions.
Thank you, Jill. Yes, Councillor Hayward.
Thank you, Your Worship. Kia ora, Jill.
Kia ora.
Good to see you. Thank you for coming in. And for those who don't know, Jill's experience as council also includes several terms at the Porirua City Council. You'll be well versed with this issue.
Wellington City Council.
Wellington. Aroha mai. But also you'll be well aware of the requirement around our standing orders and our governance arrangements and such. So you'll have some interior knowledge with this. 2 questions of clarity. I think you may have answered the second one, so I'll go to that one first. Is it your expectation on behalf of the Community Board that representatives of any governance or oversight committee would still have members of the Community Board on?
We've talked about that with Wellington City Council, so we would like to. Last time what happened was we had the councillor was the main representative, and then we had Rachel as a community board member as the alternate, and that worked really well. It meant that there was good communication between the two people, and they could work together on that from Wellington's perspective.
And in terms of the Community Board's position, are they looking for the full restoration of the committee with regards to only Spicer landfill as it was previously? It is not prepared to entertain changes in meeting frequency, for instance.
We would like it to continue as it was, and partly that's because there does need to be a level of frequency because of the issues, I think, that are coming up. Actually, looking in your papers, I noticed in the annual plan, and I acknowledge you've got huge papers for this meeting. It's quite a big set of papers to cover for a first meeting, but it is referred to in the annual plan, and I can see that there is quite a lot of work that will be coming up over the next 1 or 2 years, and it could be quite difficult if we are having to participate in kind of the end of the line discussion, which is the sort of things that your main committee will be doing. They will be only looking at what the recommendation is after a whole lot of work, whereas an oversight governance committee could actually be sort of tracking along with that process and making sure that the final point isn't completely disconnected from the community. So I think there is some value in some oversight that's actually happening along the way, which is harder for your main committee because your main committee has a huge number of papers that it will be covering. Kia ora.
No more questions. Kia ora.
Councillor Trillin?
Thanks very much. Kia ora, Jill. Noting that obviously clearly your main preference here is that joint committee and a degree of oversight, in the potential eventuality that that wasn't to happen in the absence of a joint committee, are there any particular recommendations or requests you would have of PCC for how we would keep you engaged and work with Wellington?
Yeah, I mean, definitely continuing to do the engagement that Porirua City Council's been doing with the community. That's really important. I think the way that you schedule these papers would be really important, so that it's possible for, because you're going to be having Wellington City Councillors potentially attending, and that's quite hard because their meetings will actually clash with yours, and that's where the having a separate committee could make it easier scheduling because they do clash. So I think that's quite a significant issue. But it will be on scheduling. But I can perceive that if you have it in your main committee, those committees are going to clash with the council committees. Yeah.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you for coming in.
All right, thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Okay, do we have any conflict of interest declarations from anybody? No? Okay. I've had no notification of extraordinary business, so confirmation of minutes from our meeting on the 25th of November. I will move it. Seconded by Councillor Hayward. Any changes to that for anyone? No. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Mayor's report. It's been a really busy time since we've been elected, and it's hard to believe this is our first meeting back. So I'm sure we've got exciting 3 years to go. My diary has been absolutely chocker, and I do want to thank Kylie, who has filled in at so many events for me, and Mike, who's picked up a number. I can't go through them all. There is too many to list, so they'll be in your papers next time. But I do want to acknowledge the new housing for Ngāti Toa, for Ahurumuruai that we went to, and the Pacific housing that we went through this week. Those people are all going to be in for Christmas. So that was really good. And also the return of Te Hara o Matariki, the boat with Taku. That was just an awesome session. So that's just a couple of things. And we've had the opening of the new Oratoa Medical Centre. And I have to say, for someone who sits on a health board, that was just amazing what that's going to do for our community in Waitangarua. Acknowledge all the prize givings that we've been to, but I'll cover it off there because it's been such a busy 2 months. Taku, how about you? Microphone, sorry.
Just in addition to your report as well, being there at Te Ahurumuruai and those blocks of houses that were open is just a thrill to see, new tenants and residents being accommodated into healthy, warm, well-built homes. Also, just to add the return of Whitireia, some of the Whitireia land.
Oh, yes.
Patanati Toa, and also the whānau order contract that we've been managed to pick up and help communities out there as well. But it's been busy towards the finish line.
Exciting.
We've got
time.
another week yet.
I know.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to our first document, 11.1, which is our Takiwai Metro Water documents. I'm going to move it, Councillor Hayward. I know you have got something else, but I'm going to move it to put it on the table, seconded by Councillor Leggett. I'm going to hand it over first to Mike Mundoka, and then our guests will speak.
Kia ora. Good morning, councillors. This is a big deal. This is a big day with respect to the decisions we are asking you to take this morning. What you have in front of you is the end result of a whole bunch of coordination and hard work from Lynn, Mike and the team to get these documents to a point where the partners are happy with them. I'd just like to point out that you have had extensive exposure to these documents already. You have workshopped most of them. And I think that the feedback that you gave us in those workshops, I think it is infused, or my view is it is infused in those documents now. So with that, I'll hand over to Mike and Lynn. Talk you through it.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou. Just want to do a brief introduction before we take questions. So the main purpose of this paper is to get approval for the foundation documents for Tiaki Wai. So that is the enduring constitution and the partners agreement. And it is also to approve the establishment of the joint committee, which is the partners committee, and to approve the terms of reference for that committee, which is included in the partners agreement. So with that, we've got Mike Wakefield from the establishment team and Simpson Grayson here with us. So happy to take questions.
Okay, so questions. I'm aware you have your amendment that everyone knows about, but we'll do questions on the main one first. Yes, Councillor Lawler.
My questions are about the changes, I think. One of them is about the changes since we've seen papers, and I'm wondering about the mandatory review period moving from 4 years to 5 years. I think I saw in the papers that the directors are appointed for 4 years, but now the review period is 5 years. I just wonder what the logic around that is.
Yeah, good question. I think the focus on that review period is just to recognise that there is a transition period that we're going to be working through, and through that period there's going to be quite a lot to do. The first 12 months will be the transition, I suppose, from Wellington Water to Tiaki Wai, and setting up this new entity for success. Beyond that point, we've got a period where the shareholders are expecting Tiaki Wai to work towards a model and a framework that's going to be enduring and workable. We felt that a 4-year review by all shareholders of the documents which have been negotiated and reviewed now is just too soon. As it happened, all of the announcements last week about local government related reform and such delights are adding to that conversation, and we think that with all of the change that might arise in the sector over the next 2 through 4 years, having to add this review to the mix in that 4-year period is perhaps a little bit aspirational. We think 5 is a more realistic time frame for all shareholders to work towards.
May I have a follow-up? I suppose logically, though, the Partners Committee, if they agreed, could call for an earlier review if they deemed it necessary.
Well, the Partners Committee have been delegated the role of having responsibility for the board appointments and removals as it is. And so while the board members have been appointed for that 4-year term, it's for the Partners Committee to review the board members and their performance on an ongoing basis. That will happen irrespective of when a review is documented or required by this particular Partners Agreement. If we'd recorded the review as being a 10-year interval, there's nothing to stop the board being reviewed and their performance assessed on a more regular basis.
Thank you.
Anyone else got questions? Oh, Councillor Trillin, sorry.
Thanks very much. Just around the consumer charter, I think the customer charter it's referred to in the reports. Obviously, council's endorsed principles that we want to see included in that consumer charter, and I note that the statement of expectations says that Tiaki Wai will develop and publish a customer charter before service delivery begins. Can you just talk us through what that process is going to look like and whether or not council will have a direct opportunity to engage in that process? What is our involvement like in terms of making sure that the principles we've endorsed as a council make its way into that final charter?
Yeah, sure. So the way the governance structure has been set up is that there are 5 shareholders. There are also 2 mana whenua partners, all of whom will have representatives on the Partners Committee. What this paper and what the Partners Agreement is asking is for there to be delegations to the Partners Committee. It will be them that will have the direct engagement with Board of Tiaki Wai on a whole raft of decisions and documents that they need to prepare. In terms of how Tiaki Wai will do its business, alongside all other water organisations established under this new framework, they will be making decisions and engaging at certain intervals in much the same way as local government will do. They are required, for example, to prepare their own significance and engagement policy, which is a piece of work that is underway at the moment. And that policy, much like your own, will help Tiaki Wai determine the significance of certain proposals and decisions, and then what they should do in terms of any public engagement in light of that assessed significance. Whether or not the customer charter gets to that level of significance that might warrant public engagement is still a question to be resolved. We know that the shareholders have already negotiated and agreed principles that need to flow into that customer charter, but the direct engagement will absolutely be with the Partners Committee and whether there is any more public formal consultation or engagement beyond that point is yet to be determined. The other question, sorry, Councillor Trillin, was your question around whether this council will have engagement in that customer charter. The question you'll have to resolve is, while you're appointing your representative and your alternate to the Partners Committee, they will need to be able to be supported in taking a position to that Partners Committee. So I absolutely expect there will be some room for engagement at this table on certain issues, and your mayor will be responsible for leading that.
Cool, thank you. Just two follow-up questions. The first was, in terms of the arrangement with Tiaki itself developing that customer charter, as opposed to the charter itself being included in the foundational constitutional documents which we're voting on today, which I believe was the angle that we had originally come at this from. Is there a particular reason why that charter couldn't be baked into the constitutional documents?
There's probably two responses to that. One, we have had a bit of a push as an establishment team to get these documents approved and the Statement of Expectations resolved. The Statement of Expectations is the only document that has a statutory time frame around it, and we need to get that document adopted so that Tiaki can start work on its water service strategy, which is expected to give effect to the Statement of Expectations. The Customer Charter is more along the lines of a customer promise. It'll be a public-facing document that will explain to consumers how Tiaki will conduct its business and deal with complaints and any issues that arise. And I guess the challenge with confirming exactly what that customer charter needs to look and say now is that we haven't yet completely resolved what that customer interface will be for day one next year. So that's why it's been pushed to the early part of next year, so that we can start to lock in and bake in some of the arrangements that will need to be reflected in how that customer promise will operate.
I see, okay.
Mike would like do you want to follow up? No? Oh.
I just want to point out that this shift to Tiaki is quite a shift in council's role. So we are going from the customers being ours to the customers being somebody else's, and we are the shareholders in that arrangement. So it's entirely appropriate that the customer charter belongs to the entity who owns that customer relationship. So at a principle level, that, there's some practical things that Mike has outlined there, but at a principle level, it is quite a shift in role for the council. It's not that we're not interested in them. There are people who live in this city and we care about, and they also share in a whole lot of other services. But in a governance sense, it is quite a shift in role. So, and the customer charter should belong to the entity who has that relationship.
Thank you. The last question I had, just out of curiosity, a small but notable change in wording from consumer charter to customer charter. Why was that? It doesn't seem particularly significant, but I assume there wouldn't have been a change unless there was a reason.
I think from a Tiaki perspective, it's customers that we're wanting to work with. Consumers is a slightly less palatable public term. I thought you would have been supportive of that change. To be
exactly.
I'm not even necessarily opposed. It was just notable. I just wondered what the thinking was. But
no,
cool. Thank you.
I mean, the closest equivalent we've got is the Water Care Customer Charter. And I think there's a benefit of consistency in language across the way we treat our water customers.
Councillor for Manners?
Just I guess, a question of clarification. What role will Tiaki take in ensuring that it upholds the commitments to the health of Porirua Harbour? I know the Statement of Expectations is through investment, advocacy and regulation, but what does that look like?
The Statement of Expectations, which has been included in the agenda, there's also a section in there which speaks to environmental stewardship. So I think the point that I'll probably make on this one is twofold. One, the shareholders and partners through the Statement of Expectations are setting some pretty clear statements to Tiaki Wai that say it's expected that they uphold the commitments made in the existing strategic policy documents that relate to, for example, Porirua Harbour. But beyond that point as well, it's important to note that all water service providers, whether they are councils or in this case a water organisation, are going to be highly regulated by Kaumātua Korero, the Water Services Authority, and others. And so upholding drinking water quality, safety, resilience, they're a key part of the legislative framework that Tiaki Wai needs to comply with.
Councillor Hayward?
Kia ora, Mike, thanks for coming in. I wanted to just confirm with regards to the status of the partners agreement and which councils and other organisations, I'm thinking Māori organisations, have already signed off on it. Well, where are we in the cavalcade, so to speak?
The pointy end. No. No, we are, at the moment, Greater Wellington is meeting and they are in the process of making the same decisions you are today. We touch wood, of course. So far, we have had Wellington City approved. That was late last week. Before them was Hutt City Council. Yesterday, Upper Hutt City Council approved these documents, and our Mana Whenua, two partners, have already endorsed the documents. So it's Greater Wellington and Porirua today. Beyond this point, assuming decisions are made, there will be a final proofing of the documents and the delegation will be made to the Mayor and Chief Executive to execute.
So the clock has almost struck 12. Kia ora.
Councillor Philo?
There's been a bit of discussion around the various councils about moving towards harmonisation at a faster speed than perhaps what was told in, or shared with us in the workshops. And for some councils like ours, that could be a good thing, and for other councils, they might not be as favourable for them. But my question is there anything in these foundational documents that would either stop or halt harmonisation from happening faster than what was planned?
At an earlier stage, there were discussions around what the content of the Statement of Expectation should capture and the foundation documents as well. And there was a principle that was shared across all of the council shareholders, which was directing or working towards harmonisation by 2031. That same date has been brought across into these documents because it was agreed. But I think in terms of harmonisation and how it might be achieved, there's nothing in these documents that would strictly stop that. We know that the shareholders agreed that principle. The board is quite keen to try and find a way to make that work, because when you're looking about service delivery across a wider area, having harmonisation over a period of time, and it's not just an immediate change, there'll be a step change in order to get there. Having that harmonised approach does make sense for a number of reasons. Yes, I take your point that there might be those that are dealing with overs and unders, but that's also a consequence of working with a broader service area than what you start with initially. I think the only other point I'd make on this one is it's not simple. Watercare, for example, in Auckland, post the Auckland Council amalgamation, took a period of 7, maybe 8 years to achieve that harmonisation. There are, however, some issues and relevant considerations that need to be brought in mind, and one of those is reflected in the Statement of Expectations, which talks about the water services strategy reflecting the cost to serve local communities to minimise cross-subsidisation in the short term. That's one type of factor that will come into the harmonisation model. The other will be ensuring that affordability is recognised and realised and responded to properly. The other complexity that we don't know enough about yet is what ComCom economic regulation is going to look like and how that will work when the affordability metric and consideration is brought into the mix as well. But your question was whether there's anything that blocks it. The answer to that is no in these documents. It's not what the shareholders originally agreed.
Thanks.
Councillor Ford?
My question was sort of a sub to Councillor Hayward's. It was around, was there a contingency plan if one of the partner councils decided to delay their decision. Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure we've got enough time to talk through all the contingencies. No, look, that would have made it quite practically difficult to achieve the statement of expectations, for one. It would have folded over into next year and created delay and put a lot of pressure on the establishment program. I mean, we're all working quite hard to achieve that day 1 July 26 period, but the further delay, or if we did get that incremental delay, it creates pressure not on Tiaki Wai but also on the councils, who would potentially be in a position of having to remain the water service provider from beyond 1 July, which is another added complexity and process risk for councils.
Cool, thanks.
Councillor Lawler, I'll give you another one.
Thank you. It was just because the reminder came up that these are not our customers, which I understand completely, but of course we are the organisation that the customers know and can access. So I guess my question is, what is the obligation of Tiaki Wai to establish some kind of complaints process, and what is the independent monitoring of that? Where does that fit in the system? Because people will complain to us even though they're not our customers.
Yeah, look, and this is going to be one of the challenges that all of the water organisations across the country are facing, is that there is a clear desire to create and set up these new independent entities, and we want them as quickly as possible to be fronting for these types of issues and not for your ratepayers to revert back to what they know. So there is a really important comms piece that needs to happen around the establishment over the next 6 months to ensure that customers, those receiving water, are aware that their new direct complaint line is going to be Tiaki Wai, or it should be. That said, it's quite a hard thing to achieve. I mean, we see this when CCOs are set up in other capacities across the country, that the natural inclination is to call your local council. And so there's going to be a period of transition until we get to that point where Tiaki Wai is in fact the front for these types of issues and complaints. In terms of how complaints are managed, there is a disputes process that we are working on. There will be a complaints process, much the same way as the Ombudsman can be used here. So this is all going to be part of the customer charter, the public communications around what Tiaki Wai is and what it does, and how customers can engage. And I suspect there's an important support role that councils will play for a period of time to be able to give the right messages and send people to the right point of call, but I can't imagine that's going to happen overnight.
Councillor Waddle?
Yes, good morning. I think I just want to thank everyone for the work that's gone into this. It's an immense amount of work, 3 different documents, very large documents, and every other document that goes into it. So I think the council, previous term and current term, have worked on this to get to where we are today. I think we've captured pretty well, in essence, what we want. My question is more towards our council team now. Obviously, this whole term is going to be centred around this transition away from Wellington Water and to Tiaki Wai. What avenues or what levers, or not necessarily levers, but what avenues are we going to have to get feedback as a shareholder from Tiaki Wai? Will we have a quarterly workshop where we get a feedback report, or will we get a report at full council or Te Puna Korero that covers what's going on and how it affects us? I'd just be interested to know where that's going to go, because following on from the previous question, customers are going to, our constituents are going to still come to us with issues, and that's not going to change anytime soon.
To be fair, I think that's a bit of a work in progress. Until 1 July, you'll get a lot of information about the establishments between now and 1 July, and probably just beyond. There's a lot of work to go in. We probably haven't even entirely scoped all of the touch points with council, but there are decisions that will be required. Post that, in a sort of business as usual moment, that is an interesting question. I kind of think that what will happen is that in the first 1 or 2 years, there might be reasonably regular touch points, and then over time as more confidence grows in Tiaki Wai as an entity, that will dissipate and they will, firmly grasp that task, those tasks that they've been given and get on with it. So I think we're still working that out, actually, but we'll simply respond to what your requirements are. And the ability, Tiaki Wai will, of course, has got a number of shareholders. They don't want to be reporting up more than, working downwards towards their customers. So it'll be a balancing exercise, and we'll try and make it reasonably similar across all of the shareholders. So, there's not a clear answer right now, but we'll be working to give you assurance during that whole process.
Councillor Hayward, would you like to do your amendment?
Point of order. I'd like to put an amendment to this motion on notice. I believe all of you have seen it, and it is up on the screen. Before I get into the detail of this amendment, I can speak now.
Can I
have a seconder?
Councillor Trillan, thank you.
Before I get into the detail of this amendment, I want to start by acknowledging Jake, who lives here in Porirua and works with FinCap. At the moment, he's at home recovering from a medical complaint, so I want to wish him a fast and comfortable recovery. He might be watching this right now. If you are e hoa, take it easy and look after yourself. I'm telling this story because my amendment is not about rewriting the statement of expectations. It is about encouraging Tiaki Wai, as our water services entity, to work directly with practitioners like FinCap and people like Jake when they design our financial support policy. These are people on the ground who know what it means when whānau cannot afford essential services. They have submitted repeatedly on the legislation that underpins the water service delivery reforms. They understand hardship. They understand vulnerability. They know the consequences when systems fail. I'm not asking Tiaki Wai to take every piece of feedback from FinCap. I'm asking that they hear them. A policy informed by real practice will be better than a policy built without it. The risks in this space are real. In the state of Victoria, 2 utility companies have been prosecuted and fined for failures to protect people in vulnerable circumstances. We should expect Tiaki Wai to meet a standard at least as strong and probably stronger. A Victorian state government representative said, quote, "When a victim survivor discloses family violence to their retailer, they are placing their trust in that business. They should feel confident that doing so will help keep them safe. That speaks plainly to the responsibility in front of us," end quote. Yesterday, I attended the opening of Te Whare Tiaki's Training and Community Hub just down the road. I wore orange, as I am today, in support of the Unite to End Violence Against Women initiative. I noticed there's a number of people who are also wearing kakahu karaka. Nice. It is a global effort, but its heart is very simple. We have a responsibility to keep each other safe, but especially wahine me tamariki. When we have influence over essential services, that responsibility becomes even more important. Before I move to Part B, I want to include something that was in FinCap's submissions on the enabling legislation that resonates with me deeply. All in Aotearoa should have ongoing access to safe, affordable and reliable drinking water. For some whānau, no matter what the price is, any charge for this essential service will be unaffordable. This should not mean that those whānau do not have ongoing full access to water services. Explicitly requiring water entities to provide consistent and helpful assistance to whānau who are having difficulty paying could make this a reality, end quote. They go on to say, others will face challenges with family violence and associated harm that will either be compounded or potentially somewhat mitigated depending on the processes in place as their water services entity. Establishing water entities with robust family violence policies as well as setting minimum standards for the assistance that must be offered to whānau having difficulty paying can prevent avoidable harm in our communities, end quote. Part B of the amendment is simply a reminder that as Tiaki Wai undertakes a major project like the rollout of smart meters, they consider broader outcomes. Many around this table know this already. For our newer colleagues, the debate about volumetric charging is a separate matter. Tiaki Wai will make their own decisions around pricing, but having meters will help detect leaks and reduce cost pressures. It will also give opportunities for local firms to do local mahi. Colleagues, my amendment is not ideological, it is practical. It is achievable. It stays within our role. It means honouring the Water Charter, as we already agreed to in the last term. It backs expert advice and it supports the people who need the most care from us as decision makers. This is manaakitanga in practice. This is fairness in practice, and it is necessary. Kia ora.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Hayward. We are now speaking to the amendment. It's been moved and seconded. Does anyone want to speak to it? No. Okay, I'll put that motion. Everybody accept the Jeff's amendment, number 7, up there on the screen. All those in favour?
Aye.
All those against? Carried. Okay, no more questions on our main motions? Okay, I'll move that. Everybody agrees, so all those in favour? All those against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mike, for coming in. Well done. Okay, 11.2, governance arrangements for the Triennium. I will move it. Thank you, Councillor Ford. Open for questions. I'll just get my iPad, which has gone to sleep again. Councillor Hayward.
Kia ora anō. I forgot to mihi everybody as well. So ngā mihi ki ngā kaunihira katoa, mihi kaumātua tēnā koe. Here's my partai. What will officers be doing around the status of assets like Spicer landfill if we have no joint committee arrangement with regards to our oversight role on the compliance of operative resource consents, or fees and charges for the site, or responsibilities under the Health and Safety at Work Act 2015?
Mike, is it?
Thanks, Councillor. So it's our intention to bring Spicer to the full council. As we workshop with you a couple of months ago, the implications of the future of Spicer are massive for a range of reasons, including financial for us. So our view is that that needs to now be widened up to a broader discussion for the whole council rather than for a committee. As Jill Day pointed out, there is a complication there because we jointly own this infrastructure with Wellington City Council. We need to work through that, and it's our intention to come back to you with advice in March on a range of waste issues, including how we will maintain that oversight. Fees and charges is a massive deal, but we think it needs to be looked at in the context of all of the other fees and charges that you will also be looking at as we prepare for the next long-term plan.
Yep.
Responsibilities under Health and Safety at Work Act between now and March, for instance, there still could be an issue that relates to health and safety at that site. Our responsibilities do not change. We are ultimately still required under the law to be conversant and proactive and diligent in that area.
Yeah, and I can assure you we are maintaining good assurance and governance over the health and safety issues on that site, and where we have any issues, we will bring them to you, Councillor, as we would with any other activity that the council also undertakes.
Go to audit and risk and into there. Yeah. Councillor Lawler?
Mine's a separate issue, so I think Councillor Trillin is following up on this issue.
You go.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. It's a very simple question. Just noting the proposed meeting calendar, we talked at a workshop about a kind of high-level work program, so we had a sense of what kinds of matters we're likely to be dealing with. Is that also coming?
Yes, we're working on that, and we'll bring that back to you in the new year.
Councillor Tron?
Thanks. Here, just some clarifications around this. So in public forum at the beginning, one of the concerns that was raised around this particular paper today is that it would potentially close the door on an arrangement that we could decide on later around maintaining a joint committee, including Wellington City Council. I just wanted to get some advice around that. If we vote to endorse this paper today, is that door closed, or would it be possible for us to come back and make a different decision following that advice that we're going to receive in March?
Nick?
Kia ora, Councillor Trillin. No, is the short answer. It would just be up to each council to receive and then pass a paper establishing that joint committee and appointing members to that joint committee.
Okay, cool. Thank you. That's a very useful clarification. I wondered, probably for Mike, would you be able to tell us a little bit more just about the engagement we've had with Wellington City so far in relation to this, both at an officer but also at an elected member level? Is there a clear view that we've received from WCC, and are we making a decision today that is going to be perceived as antagonistic, I guess is what I'm trying to determine here?
Sorry, Mike, I don't think we are, and I've spoken to the Emir. Away you go, Mike. Sorry.
Maybe if you could talk about it at an officer level then. Thank you.
So at an officer level, there is no antagonism. However, there is work to do and further energy to be derived.
Okay, thank you. And then the last is just around the particular arrangement and bringing it to full council. Could you, so my understanding, and I may have just misunderstood prior to this, was that this would be something that would be coming through to Porirua Korero, but you've said full council as opposed to TPK. Is there a particular structural reason for that?
No, sorry, I actually meant to TPK was what I intended from that comment.
Okay, I see.
And just by the by, we will do the same with the wastewater treatment plant. So between now and the 1st of July, we actually have scheduled for the wastewater treatment plant to come to TPK for the same reason.
I see. And is the intention, and if we're going to determine this in March and you want to kick for touch, that's fine, but is the intention for those particular Te Puna Korero meetings to invite representatives from Wellington City Council to attend? And if so, what will their rights be? Would they be at the council table? Would they be attending in public? What would that look like?
It's our intention to invite the Wellington City Council representative for that agenda item, and we would talk to the chair about how we would schedule that in a way that worked for the Wellington City Council representative as best as possible.
And to clarify, would they have voting rights in that discussion?
We have to work through all of that. So that's some of the detail that we need to kind of think through. I would just point out some of the decisions we're facing will require separate decisions from both Wellington City and from us. So they will have to diverge into two decision-making pathways anyway. So, getting what we have found sometimes with our committees, that if we don't have the whole council involved, that the issues are annexed into a subgroup of people and they're sort of regarded as somebody else's job. So some of the issue is making sure that all councillors are aware of these decisions that we're facing, as a community that spans both Wellington and Porirua.
Okay, thank you. I might just make my comments now so I don't have to speak
that's
again,
fine.
if that's fine. Yeah, so I think I'm broadly comfortable with this direction of travel, and I guess the main thing I wanted to determine, and I'm satisfied with this, my only concern is around if we're getting more information in March, making a decision now when we don't have all of that information. But it seems to me it's pretty clear that we're not closing any doors. If, based on the advice we receive in March, we decide to move in a slightly different direction, I'm getting every indication that that will be entirely possible. And given that my potential concerns are resolved, other than that, very comfortable with this paper, happy to endorse. Thank you.
It's a big decision for both councils, but we also have the chair of that previous committee as a TPK chair. So I was happy along there. Any other speakers? No? Okay, I'll put the report. All those in favour? Against? Carried. 11.3, amended long-term plan. Move it to put it on the table. Seconded by Councillor Duncan. Is Yasmin, Nick, she's online. Nick, do you have any comments?
Yes, through the Mayor, if I can just, by way of intro, firstly apologise for being online. It's in the interest of not spreading germs before the Christmas break for you all. So sorry about not being present physically. I do want to introduce the amendment to the 2024-34 long-term plan and the amended significance and engagement policy. There is a schedule of changes included as part of this report. The amendment does not change services today, so that's really important to remember. It's an administrative and legal requirement so that our LTP aligns with the national legislation and reflects the transfer of water services from the 1st of July 2026. So that's what it's primarily about. Everything else in the long-term plan remains the same. So we've done our best to pick up all the elements in the plan that refer to that water transfer. And it's for that reason that public consultation is not required, as the amendment gives effect to legislation. So we've previously consulted on options for future water services through the last annual plan, as you recall, and there was support for this model. And just lastly, the broader strategic and long-term decisions will be considered through the 2737 long-term plan process. We will begin workshops on this in the first quarter of next year, starting with the rest of Council's strategic priorities, asset management plans, all the elements that will introduce change into the next long-term plan. So with that, I'll put the paper to you and take any questions.
Okay, open for questions. Looking for hands. Councillor Lawler.
My apologies if I'm directing this question in the wrong way because I'm trying to get to grips with all of these things. So we are workshopping, we're starting to workshop strategy for the LTP in the first quarter of next year. The bit I'm trying to grapple with, both probably in this paper but also in our approach to the annual plan paper, is what is the point where we start talking to the public about these issues? And I'm drawing a distinction between that and formal engagement, looking at the significance policy, but still the community has an interest in these issues. So what is your expectation of when we would start conversations with the community?
I might default to Mia to answer that in terms of a program overview, if I think she's there.
Wendy was going to answer it.
There we go, Wendy. Sorry, I can't quite see, sorry.
I'll wave next time. Yes, so this paper is not about the next LTP or the next annual plan. It's about the current LTP. So it's a tidy up to remove water, and it's got one more year to elapse before we have a new LTP. During as Nick said, we will be starting discussion on the next LTP in the first quarter of next year, and we will, I don't personally know the timetable that we are on for that, but typically by December next year we will need to have landed a budget and a whole process. So any change to our strategic priorities that we want to engage with, which we have kept consistent for a number of years to this point, but that will be a discussion item early in that process, as Nick indicated. So any of those things that you think are worthy of engagement with the community, we'll have to plot a path through that. We try to avoid other major consultations in that process, so we'll get some visibility in that first quarter next year about what's coming up and when an appropriate time would be if you have a desire to open it up to the community for any aspect of the next long-term plan.
Is that, yep. Anybody else? No? Oh, okay. All those in favour? All those against? Carried. Approach to the annual plan 26-27. I will move it to put on the table. Seconded by Councillor Trillin. Right. Questions on this? Anybody? Is anyone speaking to it?
Yes.
Ian?
So,
No?
yeah. So Ian and I will do a bit of a tag team on this.
Okay.
There's quite a bit behind this document. Sorry, is there a question already?
I've got 3 people waiting, but you speak to it first.
Yeah, so maybe just to help put some context around this, which I think is important. Firstly, Ian will talk to the principles in the report, which I think are important, so that we introduce this for the first time to the public. We are attempting to, this is a draft, and we've got more work to do. We've proposed a 3.1% rate rise at this point, following the water's removal. We do have, though, a large outstanding tender, which is currently in front of the procurement committee this afternoon, around our roading contract. And that is likely to put upward pressure on this number. and we're attempting to really look at trying to come under the 4% mark in reality. The second thing the next point I wanted to raise is just be clear that we have included riparian planting, which is in the document. We're also trying to restrict the capital expenditure program, and I want to talk about that a little bit more because I think the councillors need to understand what the impact of further expansionary capital expenditure is on our ratings from S&P, and I'll come back to that. There is no doubt some discussion potentially around some of the deferrals. It's within your rights to decide where you want to spend your money. I guess the point I want to make here is there's going to have to be some trade-offs if you want to keep within a reasonable cap for debt, which I will emphasise again in a minute. I do want to go to section, it's page 527, and there's a couple of lines there, pardon me, around our operating costs and productivity and efficiency. Look, we've done a lot of work leading into this. We have got more work to do leading into the annual plan. I would say that the work that we've done is sufficient to actually give some confidence to councillors about the level of operational expenditure that is being proposed. I want to describe the approach, just to head off some questions here. We've done the way we've approached this is both a top-down and a bottom-up. So when we talk about line-by-line reviews, you need to look at the big line items, which make up 90% of our costs, which are like personnel costs, contractor costs, levies, legal, repairs and maintenance, insurance, and so forth, power and gas. We've had a look at each of those numbers, and then on top of that, we are doing deep dives into each of the functional areas, and that is starting to identify areas of opportunity which we think will be able to be sheeted home into the LDP, but there's nothing material in there at this point. We've got a lot of things that are around. We've got some baked-in contracts, for example, like 98% of our contracts outside of this. Transport contract represents 40% of all our of our contracts at the moment. Everything else is fixed, almost 98% of it. If you look at things like professional fees, that includes things like treasury costs, audit costs. We've looked through those line by line through the general ledger, and they look reasonable. And we'll pick up further assessments as we go into further into the annual plan process. In terms of the other thing that I guess is worthy of noting is that we've also looked at both direct and indirect costs, and I want to clarify this. It's quite an important point. So our indirect costs are those costs that sit at the centre that get reallocated out to all the business units. When you take away water, that's where we've said there's a $5 million stranded overhead, which is included in that centre cost. That's not all people. That's a proportion of various contract costs, various repairs and maintenance costs, as well as people costs. In fact, the majority is not people costs. Now, we've done a very deep dive, particularly into the centre, and so we have a very good handle on what our opportunities are, and there's some opportunities, but not inside this annual plan, that are materially going to make an impact. So you've got about 30%, about 29% of our costs are in the centre, and the rest is sitting out in the functional group. So that sits on top of those functional gets reallocated out. Now, if you take out property, which is quite often the case with other councils, our centre costs represent just over 20%. That's pretty reasonable, in my view, for this type of organisation. The other thing I want to add is that we've looked from a top-down view, and we looked at the DIA numbers on benchmarks around FTEs. We are below the median actually well below the median for FTEs in terms of the large metropolitan councils, and we're also below the median in terms of the cost per FTE. Just gives us some level of comfort that at a gross level, we're in the right order. We're not out of sync with other councils across the motu. I'm going to leave it there for the minute. I'm sure you've got lots of questions, and I just want Ian to draw out the key principles, because this is the first time we've done this in public, right?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Look, and through you, Mayor, putting together an annual plan for a city, it's quite a jigsaw. And so to get to a point where we have a draft annual plan to present is actually quite a momentous moment if you've ever completed a jigsaw and you step back and you go, wow, I couldn't see it at the start, but now I see the full picture. So look, just to reiterate, with the Three Waters transition, this is really a once-in-a-generation change, and that cannot be understated. Effectively, we are passing across 30% of our expenses and our revenues across to a new organisation, as well as 65% of our debt. So what we're talking about here in 26, 27 is a major structural change, and that comes with a certain level of uncertainty. There's still some issues on the table still to be determined, still, policies still to be written, and so on and so on. And it's the bits in between, the awkward bits that could make an impact on 26, 27, but we will work through them as we go. But this does give us an opportunity to meet goals that were once only aspirational. So things like balancing our budget. This we've only managed to do once in the last 10 years. This is an opportunity to reset everything so that we can actually consistently balance our budget moving forward, or at least start with 26, 27. Rates funding depreciation. We started in 2015 with the objective of increasing the percentage that we rates fund by 1% every year. 1%, just edging closer and closer. We're currently at 84%. We have the opportunity now to go straight to 100%. That's aspirational a few years ago. And just dwelling on that fact, our depreciation, just so you're aware, in 25-26 is $48 million. In 26-27, with the transition of Three Waters, it drops down to $27 million. So that makes it easier to rates fund depreciation. Affordability of rates. We're hearing in the media, we're hearing central government, but most of all we're hearing the community. They are hurting. So we need to consider impacts of rates increases on the community. We have been aided by some of the macroeconomic things which are out there, lower interest rates, slowdown of inflation. These things do help us with that whole budget setting process. But we also took some steps last year to right-size various parts of the organisation. So that helps, all of these things help us pull down our cost base as well as, in calculating rates. But there is a lot on the radar in the next short while. So we've got the QV revaluation, which will also impact on, the rural versus residential versus commercial kind of mix. And a couple of other linked principles which we have worked through in the process of drafting this annual plan is really looking at debt and trying to understand our debt. So in 24-25, we had finance costs of $12 million, which is a significant part of our, as a portion of our revenue. It's a quite high figure. This draft pulls back the finance costs to a point where it's only $5 million. So that you were going from 12 to 5. So it's quite a significant reduction in the cost of finance. The LTP had us at a limit which was scarily close to the precipice. So the LTP as it currently exists has us tracking very closely to the LGFA limit, and that's not a nice place to be. And we were seeing that in some of our recent credit rating assessments through the S&P process. And so this is, as I mentioned right at the start, this is a once in a lifetime 65% shift of our debt. So things do greatly improve in that space. But we have to also be cautious that that does not give us the opportunity to splash the cash and just go straight back up to a point where we get that uncomfortable feeling again. So we would like to control debt, and as part of that, there is a link around the capital investment program and what it is that we use our money for in the capital space. Just pass over to
just a very quick point, which I failed to state, which is in respect to debt. We've done the calculations the way that, say, S&P do it, to looking at our basically our rating, and we understand their thresholds. Prior, at the moment, we're well outside the thresholds that they would like us to be within. Just to give you an idea, we've calculated that in this current year, based on the capital program that we've suggested, which is about 37 odd million, we would have no more than about 12 million before we'd go outside that threshold. And if you want to go outside that threshold, that's fine. It makes it harder later, though.
So we have a jigsaw. We currently have it at 3.1% increase on non-three water rates. Although noting Jim's point earlier, there is already some known pressure on that will become more apparent over the next few days / weeks. But it's a good starting point. I would like to recommend it to you as such. Well aware that this is a good time to, if you so desire, want to make some change. This is a good time to listen to that change. So I'll leave it to questions.
Jeff.
Kia ora. I'll have a comment later on, but I'm just going to ask Mike 2 questions at this stage. The first one is with regards to Wenera to Onipoto Stage 2, what work have officers done thus far on searching for alternative funding arrangements? Because we have done so in previous cycles, I would hope that we have not lost that initiative this time around.
No, we have not, Councillor. The main place we will find that funding is with Waka Kotahi New Zealand Transport Agency. We continue to engage closely with them for opportunities that might come up, and we are at this stage we are pinning our hopes on a change in the GPS, which is the government policy statement, which is actually planned for next year. So we continue to monitor that. In terms of alternatives to NZTA, we're realistic about what we can actually achieve from other sources, and that is the place that we need to go to fund this project.
Okay. The other one was just in regards to the cap. If I've understood correctly, there was around about 12 million that before we would go over that threshold, where effectively there's a rating and therefore an interest rate impact for our council. What has held off the ratings agencies, knowing that we have been fully well over the threshold already, from instituting a ratings change?
So just remember they did downgrade our rating about a year or so ago.
A year ago.
Yeah. So that started. They were also very much aware, though, that we were entering into a transition of water into a new entity. And so they took a balanced view on that. And that's the reason.
One sub just on that. And it is in the opinion of officers that the approach that has been detailed in here with the trade-offs with regards to capital expenditure, that the rating impact from the agencies would allow us to restore a previous credit level, rating level, or to maintain our current rating level.
Okay. I can't say for any certainty. I don't have control over the rating agencies. We've had several discussions recently with them. They're obviously very interested in the nature of the guarantee between the councils and Tiaki Wai. I can only indicate that they will probably treat it as a contingent liability in our books, which is a positive. Let's not go into the detail of what that means. They will be reviewing our annual plan probably early in the new year when we've sort of got some sort of guidance from this meeting and these numbers. It's possible. We've seen it actually happen, I think, with one other council in the region, Ian?
The Hut.
The Hut. Yeah. So, yes, the answer is possible, but I can't talk on behalf of them. They'll make up their own mind.
They're interested in our stability, so we're stable. Now we're all back.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your tentative answer. No more questions.
Councillor Trillin.
Thank you. I've got a few things. I might just work through comments and questions at the same time, just so I can go through it all at once. So the first I wanted to note on the principles, very happy with the principles, and just wanted to reflect, when we discussed this initially through the induction, I flagged some concerns around some of the wording, and I just wanted to acknowledge that I think the changes that have been made from that are entirely appropriate. They've addressed the concerns that I have, specifically around considering rates increase in the context of community affordability. So I just wanted to acknowledge and thank you for listening to that. I'm very happy with this now. Also, I want to draw out in particular something that I've been harping on about and glad to hear you already raising around balanced budget as a cornerstone principle, which had some clarifications around that. This number with the projected, I think 3.1, that achieves balanced budget in this annual plan. That's I'm understanding that correctly?
Correct.
Cool. You've talked about how this is an opportunity to reset. Obviously, balanced budget isn't something that you do once. It's something that you continue to do again and again and again. On our LTP track at the moment, even through achieving balanced budget in this annual plan, is there anything you are aware of on the horizon that threatens that balanced budget that would result us in potentially dipping back down again? Or once we're there, based on our current trajectory, do we think we're good for at least the medium term?
That's a really good question. And I have one thing in the back of my mind which could impact on balanced budget in the future, which, I mean, there are many things that swirl around, obviously, and inflation, interest rates, and all those types of things. But if you put those aside, the one thing that is worth noting is the impact of the future of the landfill, and there are question marks there that need to be resolved, and depending on how that, the options which eventually come to pass may impact on our ability in that 1 year of change, may impact on our ability to stay either within the balanced budget or within the rates increase space. It's kind of whack-a-mole. Which one would you have to sacrifice? Because the landfill does make a big impact on our current day finances. So the option there, that is one concern, I think, or the main concern that I have in my head.
Okay, cool. No, that's very helpful. Thank you very much. I'm just moving through my notes. Just wanted to note around the deferrals of the capital projects, just noting there are some that I disagree with looking at deferring here, but I agree with the approach of saying, let's discuss this at the LTP. So I think the approach in terms of the direction we're taking here is entirely appropriate. Obviously, I wanted to highlight in particular my established position around we need a Te Uni portal and understand why we're doing that, even if I do still disagree, but not going to relitigate that, and the curbside waste collection as well. That one in particular, I think if we were to propose a significant change on that now, I'd want us to be consulting. And I think having that conversation through the LTP, again, is the appropriate place to do that, noting that we haven't yet reached a position on that. Really good to hear that that does include riparian planting. I think that's probably something that is very uncontroversial around this table, so that's very good. On the debt cap, just some clarifications there around this S&P threshold that we've just been hearing about. So we've got $12 million of room capex. I assume that is that we could move. The questions I have here is, first of all, this sort of invisible line, I guess, that we're talking about that we don't want to go up above, is that based on a particular percentage figure around our debt to revenue ratios, or how have we drawn that invisible line?
So I'll answer that question. So the way that which the rating agencies look at our numbers is completely different to the way the LGFA looks at our ratios. S&P, for example, purely look at cash flows, and they look at the cash flows after capital expenditure. So, because you know that number, unless you're making surpluses in your revenue, is going to be a negative number, right? So there is a threshold, which is, just to give you some idea, currently we're sitting, and Graham, you can correct me here, around about negative 40%, is right. We've got to get under around the negative 25%. We're currently sitting at about minus 16. And
in the draft.
In the draft,
Yeah.
And when you do the calculations, which are complicated, but when you do the modelling, you come up with $12 million.
Sorry, just to clarify, that negative figure, that's a cash flow figure?
It's a negative number because you're spending a whole lot of money in this 1 year and you can't cover it with any surpluses. You're not making a profit, right?
Yeah.
So when they look at highly rated, which we are, councils, and they benchmark that against, international benchmarks as well, that sort of threshold is the one that they've been giving us, saying, yeah, you guys have got to get down under that 25%, negative 25%. Does that make sense?
I think so. I think this will be something that we continue to talk about, but I guess the main thing that I want to clarify is when we talk about debt levels, usually we say, obviously, we've got the statutory cap of 280. Yes. We ideally don't want to be going anywhere near that, but that's the main thing that we're thinking about.
I guess I'll just clarify one other thing. That's why I'm saying that you can go up to 280%, or we've got the financing strategy says 255% at the moment, right? And we're certainly on our way towards that without water shifting off our box. The difference is that's not how the rating agencies look at our numbers at all.
Yeah.
And so your viability of your business and your rating is dependent on your overall cash flow positions relative to your revenues.
Yeah,
that's your after cash flow numbers relative to total revenue, right? So that's where that threshold of 25% comes into. So you're welcome to spend up to 255, our current, but you're going to pay a cost. What it does give us, though, in an emergency, is a bit more headroom.
Yeah. Okay, cool. No, that makes sense, and that's very helpful to understand that for the purpose of this discussion, that figure is almost irrelevant and it's something else. So we need to consider both of them. That's good to know. And the other thing that I just wanted to clarify, and I suspect this is moving in a positive direction, but I just wanted to make sure, the 255%, my recollection around how we achieved that figure was we basically wanted to leave enough dollar figure headroom for, in the event of a major disaster, we could pay for insurance excess and things like that. With the direction that we're tracking from our debt reduction, what are we looking at in terms of our dollar figure headroom? Are we comfortable that with this change in debt profile that we still have more than enough? And I suspect we do, because the numbers percentage-wise look better, but I just want to make sure that they also are trending in the right direction in dollar figure terms.
Through you, Chair. Yes, I haven't got the dollar calculation in front of me, but definitely the percentage. So instead of, the 255, the draft annual plan as we have it would be dropping down to 71%. So that is, if you do the dollars, I'm sure it calculates out to be a very healthy balance available in situations of emergency.
Cool, brilliant. That covers off all of my questions. So yeah, I guess just to say, so I don't have to speak again, I'm very comfortable with this direction of travel. I think the work that's been done here is really good. Thank you very much for officers on that. And I'm looking forward to getting into the meat of this next year. Thank you.
Councillor Lawler?
Thank you. I note the kind of minor works, minor assets budget. So there's one for transport. I'm just trying to find it. Minor works that talks about high priority, small scale safety projects. It's $1 million. And the community service request list, which I'm pleased to see, because picking up on the point about CapEx versus OpEx, often the requests that are coming through from communities, some are for really big projects, but often they're for really small minor works. And it's unfortunate when we can't respond to those. So I'm very pleased to see that in the transport space. And I guess I'm hoping, even though the parks minor assets is a tiny little budget that's looking mainly at kind of widgets, panic alarms and litter bins, still the community is passionate about litter bins. So I'm hoping that that is also responsive to community requests. So that's my first question, is it? My second question is back to this thing I have about consultation on the annual plan. So I get that this does not trigger the need for formal consultation, and most people find the formal consultation process pretty unrewarding anyway. But I do wonder, will we get advice in the new year about how we might engage residents during the year? And I guess the nuances, I'm not really talking about strategic items in the LTP either. I'm talking about the kinds of items that the issues that the officer was raising in terms of major structural change, considerable levels of uncertainty, significant shifts in our financial positioning. There are quite big issues swirling around in terms of local government that I'm now being asked about. I'm not being asked about what's happening with this project, what's happening with my dog control, is this park going to be mowed? I'm being asked much higher level questions about what's happening in local government. And I do think there's an opportunity for us to engage residents next year in a way that is not formal consultation on the annual plan, but is a citywide conversation about the bigger issues. So I guess I don't have an objection to the report, but if you took it literally, we might not be in conversation with city residents until early 2027, and I would be concerned if that was where we ended up. So that's my second question. The third thing is just a comment. As a new councillor, I accept I'm in a different position to many councillors, but as a new councillor, I'm still waiting for the presentation on the implementation plan for the Harbour Accord, which I know is not yet finished. So I'm assuming...
Why you haven't got it? Because we're all waiting.
Exactly, so we're waiting. So that will come to us in the new year. And that may have impacts on the things we're asked to do for the harbour. I just note the presentations given to us at our Welcome to Takapawahia to please take seriously the intent around the harbour. And I understand we have the riparian planting in the budget. There are some that would say we will soon run out of public spaces that we can plant. And so I'm interested to see what else is in the accord that we may need to respond to. So I'm just making that point that we haven't yet seen.
Our officers are in those meetings as well, so yes. Okay. Who's going to answer the questions?
I'll have a start at it anyway, and I'll pass to Mia. But so typically at this time of year, we do present an approach to, really it's the financial issues as much as anything right now, so that you have an idea about what in the new year we're facing. And we get some direction from elected members about what you're prepared to tolerate and not in the and it is usually financial. And this is a rather better news story than the last few years that we have had, I'd have to say. But having said that, we always do come back to you in that first quarter next year to explain how we will engage with the public, communicate with the public, and get some ideas from you about where those touch points are. It is somewhat complicated by the multitude of government announcements in the last few weeks. So things like rates capping and the regional council, dissolution, if you can call it that, those are confusing issues that we're still grappling with. And we've got a workshop next week on the latter of those issues with you. You're right, the community will be wanting to understand what all of this means, and some of the more usual things that we might communicate on kind of slip away a little bit in the kind of hurly-burly of that larger context. And of course it's an election year next year, which adds a little more spice to the year as well. So we will come back to you anyway in that first quarter and describe what we can do for the annual plan, the positioning for the long-term plan, and the context piece around reform, for the government's ideas. And, there's certainly some discussion going on regionally, which, we have to either get on board to or whatever, So it will be a busy first few months next year, but I just want to give you the assurance that we will definitely be back in front of you for that. Did you want to add anything, Mia?
Thanks, Wendy. You covered it quite well. I'm just wanting to acknowledge there is a lot going on. So what we typically do for an annual plan is to agree on the approach today, so in December, and then early in the new year, ahead of developing the plan and consultation documents, if we're formally consulting, we'll come back with an engagement plan. But I take your point, Councillor Lawler. It's not a typical annual plan year. There's a lot going on. So as Wendy said, I think the approach this time will be to come back in the early new year, so probably March realistically, with a little bit of a plan on the mechanics of everything that's happening over the next 12 to 18 months, including the LTP, changes to policies and a broader work program. And then at that point, we can start to talk about the key messaging and the engagement approach for all of the pieces. In the meantime, we are also happy to draft up some key messages about what we know now, if that would help you over the Christmas period to have those conversations. Thanks.
Okay. Councillor Leggett.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to reflect what others have said in terms of, I think we really appreciate, and I certainly appreciate, the amazing amount of work that's gone into this whole process to get us to where we are. And I am fully in support of the principles and the direction that we're being given now. And I also appreciate, as Josh has talked about, balanced budget and attacking depreciation as well. I mean, that's just amazing to consider that we're doing that. We know also that it's still a moving feast, and there are some big items still to consider into the new year, and that we may not end up exactly where we are now. But I absolutely agree with the direction. Can I just, I guess the other thing that I wanted to say before I ask a couple of questions is that we've got a 3.1% rates increase here now, and even though, and we've talked about it before, in terms of foundation documents for the new water entity, and we don't have any input into that except that the costs that are in our long-term plan for the work that's planned on our current water network will be borne by our ratepayers. So they are going to be added to whatever we do here. So those costs don't go away. And when you're talking about affordability overall, it doesn't mean that we should not look at continual ways of reducing our costs internally, both in terms of CapEx and OpEx, because that's going to be critical going forward for our ratepayers. So I just wanted to make those points. And that goes. Just a couple of things that are already in here. I can talk about the other things next year when we get down to detail. Can you just talk us through the strategic property reduction down from almost 4 million to 200,000? Does that mean? And you've said that there's minimal opportunity to take advantage of things of opportunities that may arise. Does that just defer it, or does that mean so it'll go into another budget in the year after?
That budget we have had year on year for opportunities that arise, and we have used it from time to time. We've taken a cautious view on this occasion. Doesn't stop you if you actually decide that there is some fantastic opportunity comes along, but we couldn't see anything at the outset right now. So you can take a one-off decision to purchase, and we will simply decisions at that time. We'd offer you either trade-offs, or you might just choose to overspend your capital budget, depending on what it was. But we can't see anything in the offing right now. Some of that was originally put in the budget for opportunities in the east, opportunities at Kenapuru, as those were quite change areas with Transmission Gully. Those haven't been realised. There was some talk under the last government about opportunities in the east. Those have all evaporated with this government. So we've just taken the sensible choice.
That's a good explanation. Thank you very much. I accept that. And the other one was the glass verandas in the CBD. Are they really in such a condition that we need to spend over $500,000 doing whatever? Well, I assume it's getting rid of them. Are they really in that bad a condition?
I'll talk to that.
You will. Okay.
Vic is actually here, but I'll try and give you a sort of a brief answer. The answer is yes. They are quite seriously bad. In fact, we've had situations where there are leakages that have occurred into some of the commercial property, and we're trying to find a really smart way of doing this. We definitely have areas where they're beyond broken and there's leakages. So we're trying to find a way. What we've got in here is trying to find an optimum amount of work to do to get it right. In other words, not gold plating this, but actually addressing the heart of some of the key issues. Yes, it is an issue.
Okay, look, I'm not in the detail, but I thought it was the glass. It's not the glass verandas themselves.
It's the connections.
It's the connections to the other building. So will this, removing the glass verandas, that'll get rid of the issue in terms of leakages or whatever?
So that's one of the options that we could pursue. So we've just put enough in here to deal with parts of the CBD, which we think do need to have some replacement. But if I'm right, Vic, it's not a full replacement. It's very much mitigating the issues that we've got. So you're right, you could take out all of those out, and you'd have to put back in, obviously, some, what am I trying to say? Some rain guards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I accept your explanation. I just, and obviously the detail you can handle.
Yep.
I was just questioning the amount.
No, that's right, Councillor.
The work. Thank you.
Councillor, we happy?
Good morning, everybody. Page 527, number 27, under the QVs. I note that you've said that it's not affecting the what, but will affect the kind of the how and the why. But my question is, you had in there something about the objection processes, which commences in March. When does that mean that our residents are going to get their actual updated assessments in the letterbox?
I'll answer that. QV expect to be able to send out the notification of the valuations mid to late March next year. People normally have 4 weeks to object to those valuations if they want to, so that's their formal process. Depending on the number of objections, though, QV may not process those until after June. The Hutt City is before us. Last time, 3 years ago, some of the objections weren't resolved until after June, which makes it a bit complex for when we're setting rates and things like that. But we don't know yet in terms of the number of objections and things like that yet.
So much.
I can imagine that there probably would be an increase on previous years for some reason, but that's okay. The other thing I just wanted to comment on in regards to the community consultation, I'm quite happy as a councillor to contact my own contacts and communities to have the conversation with them, providing that the information that we receive and that we actually deliver is factual.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan?
Yeah, I want to reiterate the comments from Ross and other councillors about what a fantastic body of work this is. It's tremendous, and I commend you guys for it. Just one question when we talk about transport. We had a big contract that we were needing, or a new culvert needed at the link road there from Waitangarua to Transmission Gully, and I understood that was going to be $2 million. Is that still going ahead, or is that completed?
No, still looking at that, Councillor. Could be some good news there. I don't know if you've actually seen it, but there are actually 3 culverts there. What we're currently modelling is to whether or not we actually need all 3 culverts. So still working on that. We'll come back to you with some advice when we're ready, but it may not be as dire as we have previously thought.
Good to hear. Councillor Ford?
Yeah, I was just thinking about Councillor Lawler, but Councillor, we happy sort of answer that. Like, I understand your issue when you're queried by public, you're kind of put into a difficult position, but there is absolutely no reason why elected members can't convey the key messages in lieu of any formal consultation process. So I'm happy to hear that Mayor is going to provide us with some notes pretty soon so that we can make sure we're all singing from the same song sheet. I had a random question that was just triggered because Councillor Weehappy asked around the QVs. Did we have data around the success rate when there are objections that are around the QV? And when people say?
I'm just trying to remember from 3 years ago. Most were resolved satisfactorily. I mean, some people wanted more and QV didn't do that, and others wanted less, so it was dependent on individual circumstances in terms of works. QV did those and processed those, and then they were provided to us, and then we assessed those, and then we agreed or not agreed, and they were resolved. So at the end of the day, everything was resolved, because that would be up to the individual whether it was resolved satisfactorily or not. But I mean, they all were completed.
Through the Chair, Graham, I think you can recall the number of objections, though?
It was over 300. It was quite a large number.
Okay, my lucky last, Councillor Hayward, yes.
Thank you again. Councillor Leggett raised the point about the impact of households when it comes to the water bill versus via Tiaki Wai. It is true that the costs and the bill doesn't disappear. It is curious to point that he didn't point out that the alternative of what is currently the status quo up to July 1 next year would be a bigger bill and bigger still in subsequent years than the future is with Tiaki Wai. With respect, we must be careful about how we talk about these things. It's a lesson I need to take on board. I'm going to reiterate again the thanks to the officers in the preparation of this item. I appreciate the effort to make it clear about the rationale for the recommendation. I hope you appreciate the robustness of my concerns raised in workshop, but I do thank the officers for taking another look. Let's start with what I like. I'm very happy with the commitment to the principles of a balanced budget and noting Council's cost increases are best set against the Burrell's Local Government Cost Index and not the whims of a government minister or ideological crusade, as well as the commitment to continue our riparian planting program. Also, we're going to fix the basketball court at Bedford. I will be bringing over a spirit level to make sure we get it right. You will be finally able to play skins versus shirts and not high versus low. So, in this document, you will find evidence of GSD, getting shit done. However, I am not impressed with the deferral of arotahi when needed to Onipoto, curbside rubbish and recycling. I reiterate that this paper proposes a deferral, not a cancellation. But a deferral to the LTP is not nothing, and there is a cost involved, debt service rating or not. For example, notwithstanding the challenge of this government not thinking that the funding to upgrade the only road in and out for thousands of people, and there are very few similar examples in our city, that serves as the backbone of any emergency response, we should as a council not be seen to be timid. In the last LTP and several more before then, we made these commitments after consultation with the public, and to defer that project only makes me feel sick inside. On a related note, I want to thank you all for endowing me with the responsibility of being our council's representative for the Regional Waste Minimisation and Management Committee. And last week I was elected chair. It is a duty I take seriously. As we try to work as a region in concert on reducing waste ending up in the landfill. Deferring or cancelling curbside collection is not a good look for Porirua. There is right now no evidence available to me as a decision maker why we should hold off. I know that we are expecting detail on analysis on what the future of Spicer landfill will be, and it is important for me as a decision maker to not have a decision that looks like it was made via a fait accompli. We are looking like we are going backwards, and I cannot get behind that. However, and so while I agree with so much of what is in here, I cannot support a decision that in my mind is a significant deviation from what was in the LTP and potentially looks like we are predetermining the outcome of the future of the landfill without any additional information that allows me to make that decision. I thought long and hard about whether an amendment would be the way out, but I couldn't see one that compromised the rest of the process. So I'll vote to oppose recommendation 5 and ask for that part to be voted on separately, and will strongly support the remainder of the recommendations. Kia ora.
Thank you. Councillor Philo?
Ross asked, Councillor Leggett asked one of my questions, but I'll just go a little bit further. How many verandas are there that are being worked on?
Do you know? Okay, we've got Vic in chambers. Do you want to come to the table,
Shout it
Vic,
out,
please?
Vic.
There's about 16 verandas.
16 verandas.
Okay. 16 within that budget. Okay. Yeah. So I also want to acknowledge Ian and your team. I think what's in front of us, it does look good on paper. I'm quite happy with how the capital looks in terms of the basketball courts at Cannons Creek, the riparian planting. These are things that I support. They're positive projects for our community, and they're not terrible. They're not big in monetary size. I'm in favour of the building blocks that you presented to us in the briefings, the balanced budget depreciation rates funding renewals. I think that is responsible. However, looking a bit deeper at the operations side, I do have concerns. Many of you will not be surprised to hear this because I've raised these concerns the away day in briefings and emails. We're told there's been a deep dive in the spending, that it was rigorous, that it was equivalent to somewhat of a line-by-line review. The issue that I have is that we haven't been shown the workings. We haven't seen what was tested, what was changed, or what the outcomes were. We know there is a $5 million shortfall when water leaves next year, and I've asked for clarification about how that's been handled. Now, if any other organisation suddenly loses $5 million of income, it can't just carry on the same. They have to adjust, and it can't just be passed on to the community because we can or because ratepayers might be able to absorb it. Good governance means that we can base our decisions on clear information. The Local Government Act, the Auditor General, they make it really clear that governors must have enough detail to understand the options and the impacts before they vote and before we set this narrative in place. And right now, I don't believe that we have that detail. And at the same time, once you combine the new water bill with the non-water rates, households in Porirua will be paying 15% more than what they paid last year for the same services, or maybe more depending on the roads. So that's a really big lift for families already under pressure, and I can't support a call of this size without seeing the workings of that deep dive, that financial review, and understanding how that $5 million funding shortfall has been dealt with. My role isn't to sign off based on assurances, it's to see the information. When the information is provided, then I can make an informed decision. So for that reason, I move that this item be laid on the table until the workings of the deep dive, the internal spending review, and the clarification of the $5 million funding shortfall are provided.
So that's a procedural motion. You're moving that. Who's seconding it, please? Councillor Fermanus. Okay. Open for discussion. Oh, no debate. Okay. All those in favour? 2 of you. All those against? The balance not carried. Do you want to?
I just want to clarify one point. Typically, honestly, there's no easy way of showing you the deep dive information. Currently, we would have to reformat that into something that's on people's computers and things. So we would have to think about how we could present that to you if that's indeed the council's desire. In terms of stranded overheads, I'll have a go at this because I am a layperson, then I'll hand to the accountant amongst us. But a stranded overhead isn't lost money or anything. What it is we are currently sized for part of our budget that we are losing. And some of those things that we are sized for, we can't drop simply because we've lost water. Because as you know, Wellington Water is already a standalone entity, and at the moment there are functions that we have in our customer service and finance all over our particularly our corporate services. So we can't easily resize them because it's a 10% of a person or 20% of a person. So it's not lost money, it's just money that we will have to respread over the rest of the business. So that's what we mean by stranded overhead. It isn't a sum of money, but that's the calculation we've made that we currently ascribe to water that we can't downsize on. So that's what it is. And Ian will now put that in much better language for me.
Do you mind, Chair, can I just add something to that, Wendy?
Sure.
I want to put this into context. We're talking about central costs of about 38 million out of a total budget of 130 million, which gets reallocated. That 38 million includes the so-called stranded 55 million. A quarter of that would probably be roughly about would be FTEs. But just to give you an idea, we have, so 2/3 of that cost sits in corporate services. So we've gone through this extremely deeply. We have management reports supporting this. Way too detailed for, I think, for governance, but we can summarise these things. We have identified opportunities going forward, but they're not available to us this year. And there's a few reasons for that. Firstly, I want to talk about the level of pressure that this team is under with not just these documents, but we are preparing for Tiaki Y transition. Every one of the team in my group is involved in that. And we will have to take on staff in the new year to be able to support that. There is no way that we can actually absorb any more work by taking people out. It's just, we would stop doing certain things, and some of those things are just would be bad practice to do. For example, we have one person in the PMO. One person in the PMO. We have one assurance manager that also does insurance. That's not common across councils. They usually have several people doing this function. We have literally 2 people doing all the developments associated with the developers across the community, and there is a lot of work going on in that area. The finance team is extremely small for the level of transactions that we're having to process, on top of which Ian and some of his team, including myself, are involved in looking at how do we set up a billing system to support Tiaki Y. These are not trivial matters, and I just wanted to assure you that we've done the work. It's over to the council what they want to do with it, but we have got those reports. There is also some opportunities around technology that has been delayed, no doubt, because of the very elongated, as the councillors know, introduction of one of our ERP systems. I won't name it. Bit of a dirty word. And we are now in catch-up mode. We are introducing AI. We're looking to get into SharePoint. We are looking at new bookable systems to replace the class system, which is 10 years out of date, needed to be replaced. That will allow better customer experience and much more efficient internal operations. We're also reviewing every one of our licenses in the IT area, and we're looking at how we can make that function move faster. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Waddle.
I have no questions. I just have a little bit of comment on this. I think what we've got here is exceptional work from our team. We're going to hit a balanced budget, and we are going to fully fund depreciation. And Ian and Graham and Jim have highlighted that quite clearly from the outset on this. And I think for us today, this is good governance. We have the people who are qualified and do this as their day-to-day job. And they are the right people for our city and the right people for our organisation. So I think what we've got today is exceptional work, and I want to thank everyone for that. And I think we need to move forward and get into 2026 and get things done.
Councillor Fermanus.
Yeah, I too, I think it's some great work. I love that the Cannons Creek basketball court is getting done up. I think it's well overdue. But I second Councillor Filo's motion because I think it's important that we are confident with the information that we rely on to govern the city, and if a member of council feels that they need more clarification, then I think we should respect that. I did have a question. It was probably better if I asked it on our first agenda, but in regards to the Tiaki Y seeing as it's a big part of the annual plan. I feel that as a council we have a role to play in transitioning and communicating this water change. And so with households about to receive 2 different invoices for the first time, and seeing as we will be providing the billing function until Tiaki Wai establish their own, is there a communication plan prior to the 1st of July to make sure customers understand the change, know what each bill covers, and I guess have a clear guidance if they're worried about affordability?
There is a communication plan in development across all councils. All councils are doing slightly different things. So our comms teams here and the establishment team, comms team, are all involved in developing that plan, because as we all know, we can try and consult all we like on annual plans and long-term plans and policies and etc. But most of our community, just about, I'd say 90% of our ratepayers are constantly astonished by the first time they get that rates bill. So getting 2 bills is going to be an interesting moment for our households. So we're well aware of that issue. It's going to be a big change for people, and there's a lot of work going into that currently.
Just a sub question. Yeah, does the plan include, I guess, a multilingual approach or a face-to-face?
Yes, we are aware of the diversity, particularly in our city, but across the region. So there is thought going into that.
Is that you now? Yeah. Yep. Okay. I'd like to thank staff as well. This has been really good, long thought out plan. Everybody's had their go at it. Yes, we've had disagreements. I'm very happy with the way this council is running and what we've cut. We have lost a lot of staff. We have got staff working 2 jobs that other councils have got 2 or 3 people, and we've got 1. We're still the lowest over the region. We have cut everything we can physically cost. Yes, we're not happy with some of the things, but actually for our ratepayers, they should be very happy we're getting as low as we can. So I want to thank all the staff. I will move 1 to 4 so that I can put Jeff's one separately. Okay, all those in favour of 1 to 4? All those against? Carried. And number 5, all those for? All those against? No. Jeff, Josh and Moira. We'll record those for you. So we're going to take a morning tea break. So we will come back at 11:15. 11.5, managing council's interest rate risk while debt transfer to Takiwai, Metro Water, seconded by Councillor Waddle. Discussion officers first, or Graham?
I'll take the paper as read, but it's just really as asking council to again to continue the current exemption from the the investment finance policy for the exemption for breaching it. That was all. So I've explained through this paper and its continuation. And we bring it to council because the Audit and Risk Committee in November wasn't held.
Thank you. We're open for questions. Any questions? No. 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 Okay. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. 11.6, the road stopping adjacent to 38 and 42 Cluny Road. I will move that. Seconded by Councillor Lawler. Open for discussion. Anybody? Anyone? Yes, Mike. Councillor Duncan, sorry.
Sorry, I just want to say commend officers for this, for a perfect solution. It was fantastic to read that. I thought, what a great effort.
Excellent. No more questions. All right, all those in favour? Those against? Carried. So stay there, because it's 11.7, temporary road closure, just in case. And I've got, other one, sorry. Well, he was hiding, I couldn't see him behind there, sorry. And there's a recommended, the change in there, 3B goes to Tito Bay, 4 a.m. to 1 p.m, main road between Dimmock Street and Kapiti Crescent and White House Road, the entire length. It was just that they had the times wrong. So thank you for picking that up, Councillor Duncan. So I'm going to move that, seconded by Councillor Ford. Any discussion on this? No. Okay. Sorry, make you come to the table. So all those for, all those against. Sorry, carried. I did it. Sorry. Sorry about that, guys. Oh, I'm so tired. 11.8. Approval to, yeah, I've closed it already. 11.8, approval to notify District Plan Change 1 and Plan Change 2 to Porirua District Plan 2025. Seconded, thank you very much. Councillor Hayward. We've got discussion on that from anybody? Everyone straightforward? All those in favour? All those against? Carried. 11.9, Climate Change Adaptation Program, Community Engagement. I'll move that one. Thank you, Councillor Trillin. Open for discussion. Councillor Lawler.
Just commending the paper. I'm very pleased to see a community development approach being taken, and I think piloting this and then kind of learning as we go is also very sensible. So happy to support the paper.
Thank you, Councillor Trillin.
Yeah, very similar. I think we don't need to get into the weeds here because we had a really good workshop around this. I just wanted to reflect on that, thank council officers for the work they had done. I think this threads the needle well in terms of us getting on with it without blowing out our own budget. So very excited for us to just get started on this work. And yeah, absolutely very happy to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? No. Okay, all those in favour? All those against? Carried. Going to now move, we go into public excluded, seconded by, thank you, Councillor, are we happy? We'll just wait